Professor Chan, as part of the FII Institute family, what do you think the role of the FII Institute is now in the very big geopolitical and geoeconomic turmoil that's happening?
First of all, I feel honored to be on the board of FII, and I've seen it from the beginning. I think I joined FII in year 2, I think, when I went to KAUST. So I've seen it over the last 7, 8 years. And it's really, the impact is for all to see. It used to be called Davos in the desert, but now I think it's really the leading forum.
Someone today said it's now oasis of the desert.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. I used to go to Davos, literally. I think there's Milken, which I'm from Los Angeles. Milken just was held there. Bloomberg is also all over. These are the competitors. I think FII is sort of gone ahead. That's how I see.
You have just been part of a panel where the center of discussion was power, wasn't it? What are sort of the main points you would like to point out on that panel?
It was really about AI and then technology, not power in terms of energy, even though that's related. I think I was asked to comment on how AI, as an example of leading technology, is being played out worldwide. So first of all, the Middle East. I was in Saudi Arabia. I was the president of KAUST, for 6 years. Before that, I was president of HAUST in Hong Kong, which is sort of now part of China. And of course, most of my career was in the US, so I've sort of had the privilege of seeing the development over the year. I think the famous quote coming from Matteo Renzi is, US innovates, China imitates, and Europe regulates. I think a little unfair to each one of the countries. But I think there's a certain element of truth to it. I think historically, US has always been the leader in innovation. China, when it was starting out, was, low-cost manufacturing and imitating, like Japan did from 30, 40 years ago. And I think Europe has always been the fountainhead of civilization for the world. Great history, the Renaissance. You talk about cross-cultural thing, there's Marco Polo, okay, the bridge between the East and the West. But today, I think especially with AI, the playing field has changed quite a bit. I think there's always I think US still continues to innovate. I think the secret of the US, I'm part of that ecosystem, is that it funds research in a very generous way because the economy is going well. So I work in the US National Science Foundation, one of the big things, funding source. So that's very important. The funding is very important. The other factor is the US traditionally has always been able to attract talents from around the world, from Europe, from China, from all over the world. Many examples. You go to Silicon Valley, right? 2/3 of the people working there are not born in US. Even the American-born people were not born in Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley is like a Wild West. I went to Stanford, so I was part of that ecosystem. Today is still true, but I think something is happening. There are other centers that are growing around the world. China is one. Everybody knows about DeepSeek. DeepSeek is not only that is a competitor with ChatGPT in terms of, you can argue which one is better, but let's say they're the same. But I think to me, the most important thing is the people who develop DeepSeek, they are young people straight off from university, from China. They never went overseas. So I think the argument that China cannot innovate, it's difficult to establish that case. And DeepSeek is just the tip of the iceberg. I bet you will see a lot more DeepSeeks, not only in AI, but in other fields, in designing chips, in green energy, in all kinds of things, because people have a role model. They see an example. And what does it take to innovate, right? I think the most important thing is what is up here, okay? And I think it was mentioned many times, China graduated many more STEM graduates than basically Europe and US combined, okay? Second, you need resources. You need to have money, support for these innovation. And China being the second largest economy in the world, it certainly can afford that. I think the third thing is this ability to innovate. That was always in doubt, okay? So it's being played out. So I think today, if I'm a young person coming out, let's say where should I go? Where's the future of my career? I think people have to think. Before, there was only one place. Like for me, I just chose to go to the US, right? I was, grew up in the British system. I went to the US. But today, there are many more choices. Europe, it's amazing.
So where would you go now if you were starting over?
I would look into, for example, the world is, you cannot say it's Europe or US or China. I'll give you some example. Google, very famous, right? By the way, I went to Stanford Computer Science. Google grew up from that department. The two founders were immigrants. Yeah. One from Russia, the other one I forgot where it was from. The CEO of Google is from India. The person running Google AI is a British, Demis Hassabis. I think I met him once before. So what is that? Is that US? Is that Europe? If you go to the top AI conferences around the world, you look at the people who wrote the paper or selected, they are from all around the world. More than a third have Chinese names. So is that US? Is that China? It's very difficult to
Professor, you mentioned this. It's a global debate, especially when we talk about AI, between USA and China. But is it a zero-sum game? Does it have to be one or the other?
No, it should not be a zero-sum game. I agree. You heard about this open source movement, right? DeepSeek was open source. Meta was open source. The idea is that open source will let everybody contribute and make a better system for the world. Okay? And ultimately, everybody will make money, at the end.
It's
That's
investment
the idea.
with impact.
Yeah, but also, you go to these conferences I mentioned. People share ideas. People compete. Mine is better than yours, or mine is better than you from last year. And this competition is a great force for innovation. So I think if you isolate things, you're just missing something.
As someone from, as you said, Stanford, where Google was created,
Yeah.
which areas of tech are you personally most excited about right now?
AI has to be one. It's a hot topic. But, I want to say something about AI. AI is, I think, a bit overhyped because there's a lot of money involved, Wall Street. The current approach to AI is not the only approach to AI. The current approach is based on big data, algorithmic model, neural networks, and Nvidia chips and so on. There's only one way. That's not how the brain works. It's just like airplanes. It's artificial flying. But that's not the only way. You have helicopter, you have planes, you have now drones. There are many ways. So I think don't put all your bets in the current system about AI.
Where are your bets? I want to hear.
Okay, so AI is one. You hear a lot about quantum, right? Quantum, I think, to me, is a little bit premature. It's not as mature as the current AI. But the world is bigger than these two things. I heard a lot about energy today. I'm a physicist by nature. You cannot get away from that. Okay, the world is based on physical things. Okay, you need to manufacture things. Need to know how matters interact with each other. Even making the chips, Nvidia depends on that. We're pushing the limit. So I think there's a lot more. In fact, a great area is where you can use AI, the current approach, to help science and technology. When I was at Caltech, that's what I started an initiative. It's AI plus X. X could be science, could be material is a good example. Medicine is another example. To understand the brain, using AI to understand the human brain, and using the human brain to make better AI. I don't think we are there yet.
Having spent so much time in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, how do you comment on this week's announcement of the humane investments?
Yeah, I read about it in the news. To me, it's not a big surprise because I have had a front row seat in Saudi Arabia. Given the ambition of the kingdom and the leader.
But will it be a sort of a signal to foreign investors to go into that
Oh,
direction?
yeah, but as I said, it's not a surprise. Even when I was there, even before, there were not many, but several major initiatives. Manufacturing is one. They're all in the billions of dollars, so investment. I think the challenge for Saudi Arabia and other Gulf countries is that they did not start out with the ecosystem is as mature as in Europe or in US. And they want to get there fast, right? They're impatient. They don't want to wait another 100 years. So in the process, you have to cut corner a little bit, okay, but you don't want to cut too much corner. So how do you do it? So one is you import, right? You have all this money and you say, hey, come, invest. But if the only thing that comes is just for the money, it would not be internalized. you will never be able to develop your own. So I think the challenge for the Gulf countries is that while you're doing this, you need to help, you bootstrap your way up, but you need to develop your own potential. I mean, COUS was created with this in mind. You know, already 15 years ago, right? We know the kingdom knows the oil is going to run out one day. Oil was over $100 per barrel back then, okay? So there's a lot of money. How do you do it? I think UAE is the same thing. They invest in the future. They do it in a different way. So you got to do that. So you got to go to the basic. You got to tell your young people, hey, there's a future. You got to study this. Don't just go buy the stuff. Even if you want to be an intelligent user, you need to be informed about what you're buying rather than just following the trend. But better yet, you develop your own thing. Why can't Saudi Arabia develop its own Nvidia chips in the future? Why can't it develop its own Google? Right? The whole world is coming to the Middle East, if I understand. So I'm sure that's the ambition and the drive behind what's happening in Saudi Arabia and in UAE, actually.
Thank you very much,
You're
Professor.
welcome.